So, welcome back to Gen Con Indy 2014. This is a guy named Joe with Dungeon Crawlers Radio. We're here this morning because this is the first interview of day 3, and so coffee's still not quite working yet. Right there, we're talking with Warpo Toys about their Legends of Cthulhu toy line. How's it going, fellas?
Good, it's great.
Right there. So, okay, first things first. So, how did you come up with the idea of the Legends of Cthulhu line?
We started Warpo in 2013, wanting to make brand new, old retro toys. And we are fans of H.P. Lovecraft's work, and we kind of feel like he had never gotten his due. There's never been a line of action figures just based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft. And we thought it was time. You know, there's been individual sculpts, you know, and toys that have been released as monsters, but never like a full action figure line.
Yeah.
You know, and the process that Warpo goes through to create toys, we call it method manufacturing, which is kind of like method acting.
Yeah.
You know, where we pick a certain time period and try and go back to recreate those create toys that feel like they came from that era, you know. So we knew we wanted to do 3 3/4 inch, and we knew that we wanted to do 1979 to 1981, you know, was kind of our time period.
Yeah.
And that was right during the time of H.P.
resurgence of Lovecraft, right?
Yeah.
You had the role-playing game, you had people rediscovering his work, so it just seemed like this could have happened. They could have gone into a design meeting and someone could have said, well, why don't we try Lovecraft? And how would they have massaged those characters and those archetypes to bring a figure line?
It wouldn't have been a hard leap, right?
Yeah.
It's like it could possibly happen. Like you even said when you sat down, it's like, did I forget that these existed at some point in time? You know, it was like we want to try and infuse that believability. There was a lot of fantasy that was going on at that time, and we can totally see it. And we're also like fans of toys that maybe kind of miss the mainstream mark. You know, those are always the ones that, like, being hardcore collectors, that get you off. You know, it's like Dragon Riders and Sticks. That line like was so, like, not a lot of people know about it, right? But like those toys, like, we love them so much, you know, just the fact that they didn't totally hit the mark, but there's demons and all. There's just this scary line of toys for kids, you know. We felt like this could totally happen.
So, what went into the decision-making process of starting with these 4? I mean, the Cthulhu seemed like a pretty much a can't miss scenario. But why have like the Professor? Why you know, rather than perhaps maybe another one of like the Fallen Ones or Rio?
Right. Yeah.
Well, we went through this method manufacturing process that Brian's talking about. We really went through the mindset. If I was a designer in 1979 and I was making a line for kids, you'd have to have at least one kind of protagonist good guy that the bad guys would beat up on and you know,
that's
drive
true.
them mad.
And there's 2 routes that you could really go with this line, right? It's like, you could take the approach where our thinking was back historically, especially during that time, the guys that totally nerded out on all the details and the stories were not calling the shots at the toy companies at that time. You know what I mean? And not keeping it historical, like factual with that stuff. It was kind of like a lot of stuff kind of got thrown into a pot, and they would pick out and change things to make it so that it would be sold. It could be sold to kids, you know? So we could have went the route of like hardcore collector, H.P. Lovecraft fan, but that's really not what Warpo is about. You know, we're trying to create a nostalgia that was never there before.
So we've kind of boiled them down to these archetypes. So the Professor, he represents every protagonist from every Lovecraft story, every investigator type guy that you gotta have. And the Deep One, you know, there have been Deep One type characters in multiple stories, including Shadow over Innsmouth and things like that. There's always a cultist. Always a leader kind of stirring things up, and you can't go anywhere without this guy, of course. So.
He's like the icon
exactly
of the mythos.
And in our line, he's actually, we call him the Spawn of Cthulhu, just for proportion reasons,
Yeah, right,
you know,
yeah.
and then also because when we created the line and we had a Kickstarter that was successful at the end of July.
Yeah.
And we had been releasing a lot of different things that we wanted to do, and one of the items that came out during that campaign was a 12-inch Cthulhu.
Okay.
We wanted to
Yeah, you
create.
got like a full size
Yes.
thing going.
Yeah, so when we first created this line, we were, you know, there's all these things that you're coming up with, like, wouldn't it be kick-ass if we did this, you know? And that was one of those things, so we always kind of knew, like, man, you got to have the large Cthulhu that goes in proportion with the other.
And it fits right in line with the tone of I guess I don't want to say like necessarily the ad campaign, but how you were approaching this, because there was always, you know, you had to have all the regular size action figures, but then they always had the one,
The big beast.
they had the big ship or the big playset or something, and so that's what everyone wanted.
Right.
It's right in tone with that. So I'm noticing that you had these ad sheets out here. They seem like they almost fit inside like the Christmas catalogs that were popular in the 80s.
Yeah.
So you really thought about what it was like back then, and how we as children approached I guess our shopping decisions.
Yeah.
How you experienced it. And that goes to some of the premium items we had. We had the old style Slurpee cups with Cthulhu printed on the front. We had the coloring book. Everyone had the coloring book. We got a VHS tape that certain people will be able to play.
Yeah, there was a lot. You know, there was an outcry from the fans of like, "Can I get this on DVD?" You know, and that really wasn't what it was about. You know what I mean? Like, we love the idea that we're still we're adding to this mythos that never
creating an
existed.
experience by
Right.
giving you all the parts that you would have gotten as a kid. To give you an experience you haven't had in 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me feel so old. Oh. Like in a good way, but at the same time, I'm like, I wish for those times again.
Yeah.
Right there. It's a shame though that other toy manufacturers have sort of forgot about this era when toy shopping really was almost it was almost too simple. You know, you can get that Christmas catalog and you already knew what you wanted throughout the rest of the next year.
Exactly.
Exactly. You pick all this stuff out. So on that same note, I mean, are there going to be further additions to the line? Is there going to be like a series 2 that'll feature more characters, expand it a little bit more?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Not right away.
Of course.
We're going to retail in December, you know,
Okay.
and the fans definitely have demanded that we go with the second series.
Yeah.
So we're looking at probably late 2015 for a second series. We've got another line of action figures that's in the product development pipeline.
Oh, cool.
That'll be coming out after Legends of Cthulhu.
Okay.
Something totally different, because Warpo's a toy company first and foremost, you know, and we love LOC, but we're about so many other things,
Sure.
you know.
So can you tell us a little bit about the next toy line, or is that under wraps? You know, you're not talking about that yet.
We'll probably make the announcement around December. But in the meantime, we're putting all of our energies focusing to get these right, build the confidence with the community, and just so everybody, you know, will believe in our next project. And everyone so far has given us such support. We can't thank fans enough for supporting us.
So on that same note then, before we have to start wrapping up, is how can followers of Legend of Cthulhu contribute further? Is there going to be another Kickstarter for any other projects that might be coming down the way?
Well, right now, you can go to warpo.com. There's also pre-orders that are being taken at bigbadtoystore.com. We'll be in the previews catalog, Diamond's previews catalog in September, and then we'll be out on shelves and, you know, across the internet in December of 2014.
Okay. And then for more from any other dates, is there social media or anything like that they can start
Yeah, they
following?
can definitely go to warpo.com, facebook.com/Warpo Toys, and twitter.com/Warpo Toys.
Excellent. Just so you know where to pick it up. All right. So so to continue on with so how big is your team? Because obviously Warpo is not just the two of you, right?
Right. Well, There's 3 of us.
Okay. Oh, okay. So it's
Much bigger team. Yeah. We're missing Tommy Baldwin. He's out on a recon mission, nerding out and buying some games for me. Yeah, it's the 3 of us that started the company last year.
We do have 2 very important people that we've tapped into for this line. Eddie Mosqueda, he sculpted the figures for us, and he was a sculptor on the original Masters of the Universe line back in the day.
Really?
He also sculpted a lot of the Ninja Turtles, a lot of the core characters there too. And he still works today sculpting the new Ninja Turtle toys.
Wow.
So he was able to bring some insights. While we are experts in these vintage toys, he was bringing insights from actually having to work in the day that we wanted these to be made.
So what was it like then convincing him to come on to the project? Was it where you're like, hey, we're going to Cthulhu toys, sign me up? Was it like that, or was it a little bit more negotiation?
No, I mean, I think the part that he was a little more excited about was that we wanted him for who he was back in that time. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know that Eric mentioned 2 people. We also worked with Ken Kelly, who did an oil painting for us for the card art, for the packaging card art, you know. And Ken has done work for, you know, he's been around since the late 60s, early 70s. He trained under his uncle, was it Frazetta was his uncle, I think. And so he's been doing toy packaging artwork for a long time, and a lot of the stuff that we had as inspiration in our style guide, Ken had done. Like, he did all the LJN Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I shouldn't say all, but he did a lot of the LJN Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
You ever had Tiamat? You know Tiamat, the old toy of Tiamat? He did that painting. That's such a beautiful piece.
Okay.
A lot of the Micronauts stuff, Manglores, he's done amazing stuff. So even talking to him, you know, just the fact that we wanted him to kind of go back and channel his 70s, 80s self was exciting to these guys, I think.
This is like an easy sell.
We were trying to tell him to do something else. We were saying, just be you from a couple years ago.
Right.
Yep. So then, so are these going to be available at Gen Con for purchase, or do we have to wait until they actually hit retail shelves?
Yeah, you gotta wait till December.
I mean, you can
pre-order.
You can pre-order, right? But we're just now going into production.
Okay.
So we needed the Kickstarter to give us the funds to go into tooling and start production with our team in China. So immediately after, and even while the Kickstarter was going on, we were starting up, you know, going through the process with our contacts over there to begin the pre-production samples.
Honestly, you got a scoop here. We got our first photos back from the factory.
Okay.
So if you come to our panel on Sunday, you can see those photos.
Okay, so you can see what the actual the line.
First one's off the line.
Yep.
So let me pick your guys' brains just a little bit. I mean, what sort of toys around that era or in your childhood sort of gave you inspiration to follow up and to create toys in adulthood?
It's funny though, if you go to our website, warpo.com, you can see our studio, you can see all those toys.
Yeah.
There is just every action figure you can imagine from that era on the shelf.
We've been collecting it since we were kids, you know, so.
It's like Clash of the Titans, Star Wars of course, was
Yeah.
the huge 3 3/4 line. Dragon Riders of Styx, Brian mentioned. There's that little window of time, Flash Gordon line that Mattel did. That really was, everyone's shrinking things down so you can have vehicles and things like that, simple articulation, but really great sculpts and strange details like that vinyl cape that really speak to me.
Well, and the thing that excites us from, we grew up during that era, of course, you know, but the thing that was really killer about it was that, you know, it was a time where no rules had really been established in that market of making those toys, you know. So when that happens, there's these explosions of creativity where people are thinking, I think it should go this way, I think it should go this way, you know, and so you get these weird little offshoots of figures that you, today, there's a little bit more rules or expectations from the consumers, and everything kind of fits into a box, you know, it
Right.
moves along, and you don't get those weird little pieces that, you know, those weird creative explorations that you would get like at the time when toys are just kind of starting out and figuring out what they're all about.
So you said, so like the creative licenses, I guess, that the toy companies would make from, I guess they would depart from their source material. So like when, I guess a good example was like the Jurassic Park line, and they would start giving people random weapons and stuff, and it's like, I don't remember that.
Right.
I mean, I guess it looks cool, but all right.
Yeah, and there was a lack of continuity that happened back then that we like, you know, nowadays there's this expectation to follow the storyline and everything matches up, you know. But back then, when you're reading the Planet of the Apes comic book and you're looking at the figures, and there's things that just didn't match up,
Right.
and we wanted to recreate that in things, you know, like we wanted to have errors on the packaging artwork because
you dwelled on those things.
Yeah,
you
right.
thought about them, and it inspired you when you were playing, and it was just another aspect that makes them authentic.
So then, what is it like then getting, I guess, getting the logistics to match up to the authenticity? I mean, because you would have to go through a lot of toys to figure out what sorts of little itty bitty details to include to match that authenticity. How do you find that?
Two things help. The fact that we've been in the toy business for about 20 years collectively, and then we're just obsessed with these things. We study every detail of every, you know, flea market find we find, so that we're kind of like the gatekeepers of that.
Yeah.
Taking it to the next level is having Eddie sculpt them and put things in that we didn't even think about.
And really early on, we created, I had mentioned method manufacturing. We created a process to go through, and it's these set of rules that kind of we can come back to every single time. It's like a platform, I should say, you know, and it doesn't have to just work with action figures, you know, it can work with plush, or it can work with, you know, board games, whatever area that we want to create a new old toy, you know, and I think just having those rules in place, you're never going to capture everything, every single detail, you know, but I think with having a process in place, we're able to capture a lot more, and honestly, there's no other toy company that's trying to take it to that degree at this point in time. A lot of times it's like, we're going to make a retro figure, we'll throw it in this package, and maybe we'll use a Photoshop filter that makes it look retro, or we'll use a retro font, and it's like, here it is, you know, and that's it, you know. We're trying to create a holistic experience behind the line.
It's almost so like, let's say like you come back to Gen Con next year and you got these, you know, ready to sell. Your booth, I almost envision it as like this total blast of the past. It's like your booth has a flux capacitor built into it. You walk in there like, whoa.
Right, yeah. Time traveling toys is like the idea.
Step across the threshold into another world.
That's almost a good tagline, right there, Time Traveling Toys.
Yeah.
So, all right, so again, it's Legends of Cthulhu at Warpo Toys, and if anyone wants to follow you guys on social media, make sure to hashtag Warpo Toys. Remember that, everyone, right there. So, thank you guys so much for being with us. Thank you for giving us some insight into your toy making experience. I suddenly won a Christmas catalog from Sears.
I have one of these. There you go.
Okay, that's close enough.
You killed the professor.
I know, I kind of did. Oh no! Sacrifice to Cthulhu.
It's always happening.
So signing off from Gen Con 2014, this is a guy named Joe. Thank you again, Warpo Toys, for being with us. And reminding you always, please, get more from your games.